Alright guys, so I wanted to show you something here really quick. So, ouch, burned myself on the radiator. The engine's hot, and there's a reason for this. So, this motor was not getting oil to the top end. Okay? And the reason that this motor was not getting oil to the top end is because the rocker shaft here was upside down. Okay, so on the Slant Six in the earlier models, the rocker shaft had a flat cut into one end of it, which is supposed to go at the front of the engine and on top. And that ensured, if you paid attention to that, that ensured that the rocker shaft went on the correct direction. The reason that that's important is because the Slant Six oils through the rocker shaft. Okay, while other engines oil through the push rods, the Slant Six pumps oil up through the galleys, and it comes in through the the very rear rocker shaft post, and it oils, pressurizes the rocker shaft, and then the oil comes through drainage holes on the driver's side of the engine, and they kind of point down toward the valve springs. That's where they're supposed to be. The guy who had torn this engine apart before had them facing this way because the rocker shaft was upside down. Now this model, this is a 1977 model, okay? The difference between the 1977, or I should say the difference between the general late model Slant Six rocker shafts and the early ones is that instead of having a flat at the front, these ones had on the very back, where the oil comes into the rocker shaft, there is a difference in how they drilled the hole. Instead of having the same hole as the rest of them, it had a hole that's the same size on the top, and it's a narrower size, it's a narrower size on top, and it's a bigger size on bottom. If I remember, it's one of those two. Either way, the hole at the very back of the rocker shaft has a different size hole on either the top or the bottom. And the reason that that's important is because that makes sure that you don't flip the rocker shaft backwards. And by paying attention to where the oil holes face at that point, you can ensure that you don't have it upside down. So the problem, there's a few problems here, okay? When the rocker shaft is upside down, the rocker shaft itself does receive some oil, enough to keep it from wearing, but you're not getting any oil on the valve springs or the valves and rockers themselves, and you're not getting any oil on the rocker push rod, and you're definitely, all that oil is supposed to be draining down the head through the push rod holes, and it goes down and it lubricates the lifters and the cam. That wasn't happening here. So the cam, the only oil that was getting to the cam was just whatever happened to be slinging off of the crankshaft down below. That's not enough. In a Slant Six, they tend to be pretty resilient, and that may have been enough for the 20-25 miles that I put on this engine before I caught that. But long term, we're talking catastrophic engine failure here. We're talking about cam failure. We're talking about lifters grinding down, metal shavings getting into the oil and sucked up and circulated through the system that just grinds down your bearings and kills your cam, it kills your crank, it kills your connecting rod, it kills everything. Okay, we're talking about catastrophic engine failure here. But I fixed that, okay? We're getting oil to the places we need to get oil. So what is this? What are we talking about now? Well, all the rockers had to come off. And when the rockers went on, no attention was paid, and partially because it's not that big of a deal, no attention was paid to what order the rockers came off in. So, since no attention was paid there, then now the valves need to be adjusted to make sure that the valve lash is correct, which is why the engine is hot. Okay, I ran the engine for a little while to warm it up. This means that the metal has expanded to the point that it will be expanded in normal engine use. Okay, so that assures us that our clearances are going to be correct. And we're doing this statically because I find it easier than trying to get a socket onto a moving rocker. Okay, it's a pain. And it's just hard to read. In my opinion, it's hard to read the clearances when you're trying to stick a feeler gauge in between a rocker and a valve that's moving. and it's, you know, constantly going up and down on top of your fuel gauge. To me, I just don't see how that's accurate, so I'm doing it this way. When you're at top dead center on your compression stroke, there should always be a little bit of slack on the rockers, where you can wiggle it back and forth. You can see, okay? Now on the Slant Six, the clearances are as follows: 20 thousandths on the exhaust, 10 thousandths on the intake. Okay, you want to make sure when you're adjusting these, right? You want to make sure that you're top dead center on compression. Okay, not top dead center on exhaust. Top dead center on compression. Okay, and the reason for that is because you want to make sure when you're adjusting the valves on your cylinder, you are absolutely beyond shadow of doubt got both valves closed on that cylinder. My 10 thousandths feeler gauge does not fit in on the intake side. This tells me I have a problem. What we're going to do is we're going to loosen up the intake to where the gauge will fit in pretty comfortably, right? Way too comfortably, right? So now what we're going to do, okay, here's our exhaust valve, cylinder 1. Stick your 20 thou feeler gauge in there. Oh wow, you know, you realize, wow, that's loose. Okay, turn it, quarter of a turn, tighten it down. So once you start feeling it drag on your gauge, okay, once it starts dragging, you're at clearance. Okay, so now we're going to go over to the intake side with our 10 thou, and that's loose. That's way loose. Okay, so I'm just going to sit here and move my gauge back and forth. And I'm going to keep tightening it as I go. Until I start to feel it drag. Right there, I'm feeling it drag. Okay. We're going to double check that exhaust really quick. We're good to go. Okay, cylinder 1's good to go. Once you've done that, just grab your engine and your try not to burn yourself on anything that's hot, like the radiator or the heater hoses, for example. Now the next cylinder in the firing order is cylinder number 5. So we're going to watch those rockers as I rotate the motor. I'm having a hard time doing it because I'm trying to be careful here. I'm watching the rockers. I'm grabbing the fan and I'm grabbing the belt. I'm giving it a push and a pull to try to rotate that motor clockwise. Okay. You can see now the exhaust valve is coming up. The exhaust valve comes up, and both valves are shut. Okay. So both of our valves on cylinder number 5 are too tight. Actually, you know what? So we're going to loosen these up. Both valves. Okay. You can start with whichever one, it don't matter. Intake, exhaust, whatever's closer, if that's what you want to do. Okay, so right now the closest one to me is the intake, so I'll start with intake. Try to move these heater hoses out of the way so I don't burn myself on them again. See, intake's almost there, but it does need to be tightened a little bit. does take a little bit of muscle to move these valve adjusters, especially with the 1/4 inch drive ratchet like I'm using here. Okay, so now we got the intake done on cylinder 5. We'll switch back out to our 2/1000 feeler gauge. Stick it into that exhaust valve. And we're just a little tight on the exhaust, just a tap. Loosen it, and we're just going to go little touches at a time. There we go. Now we're good. Cylinder 5. And it just goes on and on like that. I'm not going to bore you, make you watch me do all this. But that's as far as it goes. I just wanted to give you guys an example of how that's accomplished, especially on a solid lifter engine like this. So I hope you guys got something out of that, something useful, whether it's, you know, whether you just needed to know how to adjust the valves, or whether you just needed to to know, you know, maybe you're having this issue on why the top end of your Slant Six isn't oiling. So, you know, maybe that helps you out. And like I said, hopefully you got something out of this, and I'll see you guys in the next one.